Hey, Happy New Year. So, a lot of you have been asking what the heck I'm doing for my personal engine. Um, it is a Series 5 13BT thick rear dowel. Um, we studded it half inch. It's going to be nine of those. Um, the threads are grungy. We're going to see how that is, but it's pretty hard to clean everything back up after it's already drilled. So that's the one downside of that. I've got the ARP studs for the standard 10 millimeter beyond that, which have a little bit of play in them. That's kind of a very standard thing. So that's helping purely clamping force, not helping the um, distribution as much as a dowel would. Solid dowels from Pineapple. The porting itself is from Eccentric Motorsports. We're aiming for a large street port with drivability in mind. Um, so every single turbo setup and every single engine setup you do for porting, it's very critical to have your needs and wants met, right? So not everyone is going to want something that only works for 2,000 RPM on the very top end of the power band. Um, you can get crazy monstrous power, but if it's not usable, it's really not fun to drive. So this is kind of a luxury Grand Touring car, so it needs to be okay on the street. It needs to be um, usable in lower RPM stuff. And so I have the intake manifold flapper on a single drive-by-wire throttle body. Um, and the components that are making all of this come together are really designed to be about 4,200 RPM to about 9,500 RPM for a peak. And then pretty much rotaries in general, over 10,000 RPM, the oil system cannot keep up with capacity. It's not a pressure issue, it's capacity. Um, and that's why I'm kind of saying that's a hard limit. I'll try to go back a few hundred RPM from that and kind of say, okay, if power's still climbing pretty good, I might let it go out. But that's where you get your oiling faults, which is why I did some small mods, like billet stationary from J. So that'll help a little bit of, instead of the eccentric shaft sitting on a layer of oil, now it's supported itself. So that's kind of cool. I'm going to try it out, try to see if I can get a lot of street mileage on this thing without the bearing failing. I think this is going to be a lower mileage wear item, but I cannot confirm that, so got to test it. Just like with everything else. Uh, what is next? I mean, I can go through all the internals of what's in the engine, and that would probably piss a lot of people off, but I'm going to do it anyways because I had to redo a bunch of stuff. It's my third rotating assembly. Steve uh, took what I had, fixed it. The balance was off by what we think is the oil slosh was not even being measured to begin with. So in other words, like a plumb bob, making it accurate to a plumb bob, but not accurate to our needs of a real engine with oil in it. That's one part. Two, rotors were really fucked. They were hand sanded. It was bullshit. I'm just blown away. Uh, it was a disaster. And while we realized the balancing was way off, and the internal ribbing of the rotors was sharp, which will create a stress riser, which will create cracks in the rotor as you're going into more and more boost. I said, okay, take a step back and focus on what is going to make this thing reliable. So, since we had to rebalance it anyways, I said FD front counterbalance weight. I said um, bearing support from E&J, and I did as much REW stuff on a 13BT, which is what I'm running, um, as possible. So I'm going to have a larger bearing. It is now balanced. The balance was off over 20 grams, which I just, mine is blown. Mine is blown 20 grams. It's crazy. It's more than that, put it that way. So Apex also went with our RX parts from Roan. I have the RA Super Seal heavier duty spring behind that, hopefully to get rid of any chatter. Um, it's 9.5 inch studs, ARP for the others, uh, a lot of oiling mods, external oiling with air conditioning and power steering, which is pretty cool. Um, I know that Will down in Los Angeles, thank you for helping on that. And Zach, you already did it, so thanks, buddy. That's awesome. Um, the main reason I want to make this video is I'm trying to vent and get this out because I have a tendency to have the worst luck on things that I spend time on or uh, have effort into or money into, whatever it is. The world loves blowing up my face. Typical. So I plan, I save, and I make the best I can of this situation, bounce back, make it better. So now I'm dealing with the right people. It took a while. It was a long road. Um, and I feel like the way forward, especially for this year, is going to be the car's going to get finished. It needs to be driving in April. We have a way to get the car down to LA for wiring. I have a way to get the car down the street for me for fabrication, which will happen before wiring. And I'm trying to set up uh, a good facility to do this stuff in that's convenient for the specialists that I have. Um, it's just a big fiasco. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of dynamic parts happening at the same time. So while the wiring is happening or while the fabrication is happening, I can measure up the drive shaft, get it made. It's all carbon fiber. It has to be a very specific diameter. That's going to get planned out and done right. Um, I can go back towards the turbo selection and how that is such a critical aspect of this. I like the idea of having one car in the fleet that may be very simple, very easy. That'd be my Honda Civic. Even though it's got bougie shit for H23 VTEC, it's still a very simple car. Roots are very simple. Um, Rx7 is the how complex can I make this and reliable can I make this? So, not a single fuse in the whole car, except for the CDI. Um, oh, and the amp, but who cares? Beyond that, no fuses. It's all PDM, all Mtron. It's going to be badass. Everything will communicate by CAN bus. So, modernizing a car from the 80s takes a lot of effort. Very cool.